Thanks for listening to Two Girls, One Plant.
We're your hosts, Madison.
And Jillian, and this week we're getting dirty.
Gonna get dirty. Sorry. I've seen this before, Julie. Sorry. Hold on, Gonna get dirty! I'm channeling X-Tina.
Woo!
Sorry. She's over me.
Oh, we're just in this hot, steamy room, y'all. We're gonna literally just talk dirt for a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, but this week we're talking about different substrates and dirt and all kinds of things that we use for our plants. We talked a couple weeks about fertilizers, so I thought it'd be cool if we talked about dirt.
Yeah, this is the basics. So many people come in and wonder why you might need charcoal or what the heck vermiculite is. All kinds of weird questions.
Yeah.
How are people growing on porous materials? Like all kinds of things. So it's definitely worth looking into and understanding better.
Yeah, for sure. Let's catch up, though. What's new and exciting?
So it's been an interesting week. We did our Facebook plant group episode last week.
Yes.
And the plant tea group that we got some of the information from is no longer a group. So figured we should mention that.
Yeah, that's like literally our Facebook plant group podcast episode came out, and like literally a day or two later, that group got so dismantled.
It was bad. It was about a 48-hour turnaround. It just fell apart.
Yeah, which is like kind of sad.
Oh, absolutely.
But I feel like that group needed a revamp. I kind of like the new group that they made. It's a little bit better structured, I guess I would say, and not so much like I don't know, I like the rules in that group a little bit more than the other group.
We're focusing more on community and kindness versus like dogpiling or bullying in any way.
Totally.
So that's definitely a positive direction.
It is, for sure.
Yeah. How about you? How's your week been?
Busy also. It's been a long week. I'm just angry all the time.
I know. It's hard. There's so much happening.
So angry.
Not enough happening systemically.
Yeah, it's just been kind of frustrating just seeing everything that's happening, and like I don't feel like I really have a whole lot of room to complain, but it's still, I think my feelings are still valid and people's feelings are still valid about being frustrated and angry. So I'm not gonna like dog myself on that, but I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to continuously watch what's happening. Yeah. So, but I did do another auction for that Burgundy Princess cutting.
How did that go?
It went great. I think the bid was $55. And then one of my friends who's going to remain anonymous reached out to me and was like, hey, I don't really want to plant. And I don't really feel like setting up a GoFundMe, but I still want to donate. Well, can I just Venmo you money and you can donate it for me?
Of course.
And I was like, yes, what? Like, that's so nice of you. So, yeah, I really appreciate everybody participating. And I'm going to do another one probably before I go to Florida. Dun, 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 dun. COVID hot center.
I know, you got to be careful.
Oh, God. Yeah, so that will be interesting. Yeah, we're recording a few episodes today. I'm just getting ready for my vacation, so that should be fun.
Yeah, we got a lot of episodes ahead of us.
We
but
do.
It's fine. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Great end to season 2. Woo-woo.
Yeah, that's wild.
I know, it's a weird thing to say, isn't
that's
it?
So weird.
I don't think we've mentioned that yet, but we're almost to the end of season 2.
We are. Yeah, we're talking about taking a break in August for a couple weeks and then coming back, and we have so many fun ideas for season 3. But that's like a little further down the road.
Yeah, man, today we're getting dirty.
Gonna get dirty! I am X-Tina.
So, not to sound too smart or anything, but there's so many substrates that you can use for your plants.
Yeah, what do you use?
Many mediums.
For like the majority of your plants.
Okay,
like
so
what's your mix?
The majority of my plants, I really do take it pretty easy. So I usually get like a cactus mix, an orchid mix, and some perlite, and I'll mix it together with maybe some like mosquito bits. And some vermiculite for like smaller starts and things like that. And that's kind of it.
Okay. Nice. Yeah. That's awesome.
Very easygoing.
Okay. Very cool. Is there like a particular brand that you like?
I mostly just use Espoma because we carry it at work.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for me to get hold of.
That's cool. For sure.
Yeah. How about you?
I just changed. I feel like every time I go to do a big repot, my mix changes all the time.
That's fair.
But this last mix I did was peat, charcoal, lots of perlite, succulent mix, mosquito bits, worm castings, and I just started using diatomaceous earth, which we're going to talk about what that is today.
Yeah, it's really helpful.
Just started doing that, and I haven't seen I've seen maybe 2 fungus gnats this whole season. Mm-hmm. Last year it was like a hot mess. I had to like Armageddon their ass. But this year I've barely seen any fungus gnats, and I have to pay tribute to using like the mosquito bits and I think the DE. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, but let's like kind of get into like what everything is. Yeah, because there's like so much, like there's so many different options now, and you like hear all these like different words. You're like, well, what does that kind of work for as far as like my plant goes and what I need to look for? But I think like starting with like the basic one, or like the most common one, is peat moss. And that one is sold pretty much everywhere in everything, just about. Yeah. Like if you buy a bag of like a succulent mix, like it will have a little bit of peat in it, or like orchid mix will have a little bit of peat in it. But peat moss is like the most common one. It holds the most water. There's not a ton of aeration in these. They'll have perlite in it typically in the bags for aeration, but it's not like anything. I don't know. I feel like maybe your calatheas would like that, but I still feel like the roots still need some aeration.
Yeah, just peat moss is kind of heavy. Yeah. Usually I would only do that for like mosquitoes. Like when people have like wet sticks, you know?
Yeah.
That does kind of well in peat moss just because it's so wet and humid. But otherwise, it's definitely best to mix with other things.
Right, yeah.
It's also kind of a hot button issue just because of how it's harvested. Mm-hmm. So we get peat moss from bogs, and these peat bogs develop over thousands of years. So it takes a long time for it to produce.
It's 1 millimeter a year is grown.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Like itty bitty amount.
So long for us to just sell commercial sized bags of peat moss on a regular basis. Yeah. Definitely not really a very sustainable resource. Eventually, you know, we're trying not to damage those habitats too much. Most of it comes from Canada or Russia, which I actually didn't know before today. But all the peat moss we buy in the US pretty much comes from Canada.
Yep.
And they do try to enforce, you know, sustainable practices.
Yeah.
I think whether people follow that or not is probably another story, but I mean, they're trying to preserve those habitats.
Yeah, and there are people like put in charge to make sure that it is sustainably harvested, and that's actually, again, the International Peat Society, which I think we talked about in Tyler's episode very briefly, and we kind of talked about that a little bit too, but not very long and like in detail. But it does, those people do like go through and like set measures for like the harvesting of the peat moss and the peat bogs, which make up 3% of the like Earth's surface is a peat bog. Like, that is so wild.
Yeah, it's really
kind of
cool
interesting to think
about.
Like that. But I mean, it kind of makes sense with like the total amount that we like have to harvest, just to like have it in like used for like commercially, I guess, and also retail as well. Like peat moss is used for all kinds of landscaping, to, you know, be in like groves and to produce our food. So it's like used on a huge, massive scale. It's not just for our itty bitty pots.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to sit here and tell you, you know, that you're damaging the environment by using peat moss. It's really popular, and frankly, you as an individual are only going to make so much of a difference when there are huge corporations that bag it and sell it on a large scale.
Yeah.
But it's good to be aware of, and it's good to know about alternatives too.
Yeah.
So there are definitely some alternatives to peat moss that you can use. One of them is pit moss.
Hell yeah.
Love the name.
Pit moss. I saw it on Shark Tank like a year ago. The guy came on and he got a deal with Mark Cuban, I think. But yeah, it's just recycled paper that is shredded so finely that it kind of has the texture of peat moss. But it's renewable, it's recyclable, it's sustainable. Right. And it has even more aeration than peat moss does. So I was on their website today, and really cool company. The guy who started it is like, that's like just such a smart initiative to take and really think about like how much paper waste there is. Like there's so much waste in general, but like really taking a piece of waste like paper and renewing it is such a smart idea. So good for him. And honestly, I kind of want to try it. I've always wanted to try it.
I am kind of curious.
And find some. I think you have to order it online. I think just through their website. I think it might be on Amazon. You can check it out.
Yeah,
if we find a link.
Yeah,
we'll link the website. But you could also use coco coir as well, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. And compost. Those are also really great alternatives to using peat moss, and they're a little bit more sustainable.
Compost makes sense, and just composting in general is a really renewable, sustainable way to be. I've been wanting to try it for a long time, but there are definitely a lot of resources online, and maybe eventually we can do an episode just on that.
Totally.
But definitely a really nutritious medium that you can use for your plants.
Totally.
And so let's talk about coco coir, because I actually do think it's a pretty cool alternative.
Yeah, that's a really neat one. So that one comes from the coconut industry, hence the name coco coir. Is it coir or coir? Coir. Is it coir or coir?
It's like that French.
Noir?
Yeah, that's what I think when I
noir,
see it.
Coir?
It's COIR.
What's that show? Have you ever watched that show, The Incredible Kimmy Schmidt?
Yeah.
Pinot Noir. Caviar. That's what coco coir. Okay, that's going to be in my head now, this entire podcast. So that comes from the coconut industry. So it's just a byproduct. The part that they don't use, it's the husk of the coconut that basically gets like overly processed. Goes through like this really big like drying phase. There's actually better processes now that are a little bit more sustainable, so it's not like as wasteful, like using too much water, because it has to like soak apparently. But anyway, that's how coco coir gets made. It's basically just dehydrated coconut husk.
Yeah, it's great. It's just a byproduct of the coconut that you buy at the grocery store. Yeah. So it's a really sustainable resource because they're consistently producing that byproduct.
Yep.
So, I love it. I have heard that the pH can be a little, I know it says that it can be neutral. I've heard that it can be like salty. You want to like rinse it really well before you use it. Yep. But that's it. Otherwise, it seems to be really useful. Yeah.
And if you have like one that's like more like of the husk, so those little like fibery hairs in it, that's really great for the aeration. It allows the roots to breathe more. Oh, cool. And I think we should kind of preface this too when we're talking about aeration in this episode. What that basically means is that when you water a plant, we don't want that soil mix to like press down on the roots. Right. You want them to be able to travel through the pot and find air and have water at the same time. Yep. So that's what we mean by that. So when we have aeration, it allows the roots to move and find a fresh breath of air.
Yeah, it's not really dense soil, so that you don't want anything too compacted. Because remember, the whole life of the plant is in the pot. So you don't want to encourage root rot. Yeah. You want to let it grow as much as it wants to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and while we're on the subject of aeration, we can probably move into perlite, which is specifically used for that purpose. I love adding perlite to almost any mix I buy from the store, just because, I mean, I use Espoma. I know a lot of people use Miracle-Gro. A lot of those mixes tend to retain a lot of moisture. Yeah. Especially just standard potting mixes, which is why I always do the cactus one.
Yeah. Totally.
So perlite really helps with that if you do have a soil that's too heavy or too dense for the plants you're using.
Yeah, and it's totally fine to add like your own, like Jillian was saying, like these mixes already come with perlite, but it's not a lot. Right. I usually, like when I add mine, I do like 50% perlite for my whole mix. And then I'll put more on top. Succulents. Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely need a lot more perlite than what comes in the bag. Especially if you tend to love your plants. Like during quarantine, and stuff.
Who's over loving their plants right now that they're like, I need a break? Yeah. We were on a break.
But like, I've been totally that person that's just, like, walking around every day, like, do you need water?
Do you need water? Are you sure?
Water?
Are you okay?
So perlite really helps prevent me from just killing them all with too much love.
Dad, did you think it was, like, I thought it was styrofoam. Or, like,
it feels like styrofoam.
It does. So like, you can mush it in your fingers. Mm-hmm. It's fun. When I'm repotting, I mush a lot of perlite.
So what is it, though, if it's not?
So it's like puffed volcanic glass or rock or whatever, but it's like this volcanic like glass or pebble or whatever. It's really, really small, and it's heated so hot that it puffs up like 10 times its size, and that's the size of the perlite.
Oh, it's like volcanic popcorn.
But pretty much, yes. Yeah, don't eat the volcanic popcorn.
Nope, it's not for the movies, but it really does help a lot with your plants.
Yes, it does. 100% recommend perlite and everything. Cool. So that is perlite, and then something really similar to perlite is vermiculite.
Yeah, I'm glad we're mentioning this one because I feel like it's not mentioned enough.
No.
Even though it's such a good mix-in.
It is. I have such a hard time finding it in plant stores. Do you guys sell it at...
Yeah, we do.
Do you?
Espoma makes it.
That's right, they do.
Yeah, and we carry all of the Espoma products.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. I never see it at like Home Depot or Lowe's, or like a couple of my favorite garden centers by me. Like, I never see it, so I never use it. I've always wanted to.
It's almost like not a mainstream like mix-in. You know, like you have to go to a specialty, like a garden shop might carry it then.
Right. Yeah, and it's kind of similar to perlite, where it's like these little like flaky minerals that are like kind of brownish. So again, it like adds aeration, but because it's a mineral, it has really great like nutrients, so to speak. So that's like your magnesium, your iron, your aluminum. So that's really, really great for like the, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like the overall like bacterial, I guess, like pH. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like balance. We're trying so hard. What is the word I'm trying to think of? It's like where it's like it creates like a really great like biotic like landscape for your plants, pretty much is what I'm trying to say.
Like a symbiotic.
Yeah, that's the, oh my fucking god, you guys. I need to take another hit. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, that does make sense because I've always heard it in relation to like starting plants.
Yeah.
You know, like any mixture that's going to have a lot of moisture or that's going to be in a lot of humidity. Like vermiculite's really helpful for those kind of plants. Yeah. Like your little plugs and stuff that just has to be moist all the time.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I've never tried it. I've always wanted to try it. I hear people talking about it all the time. And like it could be a substitute for your perlite. So, but there is like also, there was a controversy around vermiculite as far as like, the mines where they get vermiculite was positive for asbestos.
That's crazy.
For like the miners and workers down there. Wow. It's a totally safe mine. Like you don't get like what's that, black lung or whatever from those mines. But asbestos was like a huge concern coming out of those mines, affecting the miners, the miners, and then also like potentially affecting people who were buying vermiculite. Right. That is long since, like, not a thing anymore. Like, it's tested regularly and it's regulated. So, if you've heard that, like, it's fine now. But it's actually kind of very scary that something like that could happen. And you could be just, like, this little plant person, just buy vermiculite and then you get asbestos.
Right.
So.
Yeah, not exactly what you want to bring home from the plant shop.
You knew.
So, super useful. Hopefully, we'll see more vermiculite in stores. Yeah. Here's another kind of uncommon one. Pumice. Yeah.
Pumice. Okay, so this is my dumb brain. Don't judge me, you guys. But when I first heard it, I was like, oh, it's like a byproduct of pumpkin. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know. My heart. Oh dear.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
You know, you can get loofahs from a gourd. Was that not the information you... I'm sorry, y'all. I'm so...
Yes, I've seen those TikToks.
Oh, man.
I watch them all the time. Anyway,
right.
pumice.
Pumice. I've actually had people come into the shop and ask me if we carry this, and we don't, unfortunately.
I've never seen it. I've only seen it on, like, Amazon.
Or, like, for your feet.
Yeah, the stone.
Like a pumice stone.
Yeah, to, like, get all your nasties off. Yeah, exactly. I've seen that. Yep, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of similar to perlite, where it's whipped volcanic glass.
Ooh, whipped
and but it makes like little air bubbles. And it's just lightweight. It's very similar to perlite. Big difference is that it's more aerated.
Yeah, it's like super porous.
Yeah, it's a little bit more porous. But because of that, it allows microbial life to thrive while maintaining soil structure better than perlite.
Okay.
And it has a neutral pH. So if you need something neutral, look for that guy. And it helps with fertilization absorption, which is kind of cool. So it's really great for your roots if they need to take up that water or take up that fertilizer. And it's natural. It's organic. So I have never tried it.
No, but now I kind of want to.
I know. I kind of want to also. I always look for it every time I go and I'm like, I still can't find it anywhere.
Yeah, I don't even know who makes it.
I don't know either.
Yeah, like who sells it for the plant world, you know?
I have no idea. We'll look into it.
Yeah, we'll let y'all know.
Yeah.
And then there are a few mixes that you can buy. So I know I mentioned at the beginning that I tend to use these because I'm a little bit on the lazier side sometimes. But the first one is an orchid bark mix.
Yep.
And it is made specifically for orchids because they're epiphytic. So you don't want to put them in like a dense soil like you would, you know, your Fittonia.
Yeah.
So they don't get regular potting soil.
Yep. Very aerated. Has a lot of bark, coconut husk, a lot of perlite, moss. That's really like the basis of like an orchid bark mix. Sometimes like those like big stones can be in there too for the orchid bark mix.
It's pretty chunky.
Some orchid bark mixes are kind of cheap though.
Yeah.
They have a lot of filler in it. So just be kind of wary of your orchid bark mix. I mean, again, it's a mix that you can make yourself by buying all this different stuff.
Yep.
But, I mean, there are good ones. Spoma's really great. I have that one. That one's a nice one.
Yeah, and I think in one of, like, our very first episodes, I'd mentioned, like, a guy who makes it on Amazon called, like, Orchid Nut or something like that.
Whoa.
I'll link it, but it's a really good little orchid mix that you can buy on Amazon that he makes. Yeah.
Good for him.
Orchid Nut or Orchid
Orchid Guy?
It's, like, something really cheesy.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cute.
I'll share it though. But there are definitely a lot of people that make orchid mixes.
That's cool.
Look for one that's, you know, less filler and more like nutrients.
Yeah, more organic. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's orchid bark mix. And then succulent and cacti, that comes in a mix already. So really heavy again in perlite, wood chips, sand sometimes on a lot of them because a lot of these plants you find in the fucking desert. So they're used to that sand, that limestone.
Yeah, absolutely. They're usually marketed for palms too.
Yeah. So
they're going to be like really sandy.
Yes.
Really sandy, really airy mixes. Usually a little more soil than you would find in an orchid mix.
Yep.
So the chips are going to be a little bit smaller, things like that.
Yes.
But it's still going to allow the water to travel freely through it.
Yep.
So it'll drain properly.
For sure. And you want to be careful with some cacti mix because they're slow to break down because they're such like thick materials. Yeah. So it takes a long time for them to break down and that can cause them to rob nitrogen from the soil. So it's really good to add like a small amount of like blood meal or alfalfa meal to those like composted wood chips.
That's good to know.
Just to help retain that nitrogen level that your plants need. Remember, we talked about this in our fertilizer episode, so go listen to that if you want to learn more about that. But that's really great. And again, other outdoor plants too really like wood chips and stuff. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially, again, if you tend to water a lot because they drain really well. So you're less likely to cause root rot.
And then the next one we have to talk about, which I feel like is very popular right now too, is sphagnum moss. Mm-hmm. Sphagnum moss is great for, we make that joke, a moss-spittle for rehabilitating your plants. Or if you have like a wet stick, I see a lot of people put wet sticks in like a sphagnum moss little area just to help them root. And, or if you're rehabilitating anything, or if you're just, that's what you want to grow it in, it's just like the sphagnum moss. You can also mix it. I've mixed it in some just because I had them in the sphagnum moss already. And it's hard to get pull it away from the roots when you're transferring it to a soil mix. So I just leave it on there, and it's fine. It's aeration for the roots, whatever.
So, I have a dumb question.
What's your...
Is this not the same as peat moss?
No.
Okay.
They're similar where they both come from a bog. Okay. And I'm pretty sure sphagnum, and quote, tell me if I'm wrong, but sphagnum is more the top layer part of peat moss.
Okay.
Yeah, I think sphagnum moss, if I remember correctly, it's just that top layer part from the peat bogs. So that's what's harvested because it's a byproduct of that, and that's what's just used for it.
Okay,
so
that's good to know. I always thought they were interchangeable, so it's good to know that they're actually harvested from the same place, but have ultimately different compositions. It's a little,
Exactly.
A little different.
Exactly. Yeah. And the quality is important. I've tried different sphagnum mosses, and you can tell the difference. Ooh. Some are soggy, nasty, smelly, gross, smell like poop, not cute at all. And then there's some that are fresh. It smells like the earth. So there is definitely a difference. And I buy the bricks where you just add water and it expands.
Right.
That, I love it. Can't get enough of it. So that is spag. What does Rachel say in Heart Shaped Leaves? Her spag bags. Which I kind of love. Aww. Spag bags. Let's make that a thing. And then we talked about it a little bit already in regards to the succulent mix, but sand, really great for aeration, again, for water drainage. It's coarse. This one is really good to help with your pests too. Have you ever heard that?
Yeah.
You put a layer of sand on top of your pots.
Yeah, the gnats can't get through it, so they can't lay any
suffocates
eggs in
them.
the soil.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt your plant. It's sand.
Yep. It's great. I've actually used it in terrariums too. It's the top layer to keep everything.
Yeah.
It's a little more decorative.
Yeah.
Keeps the pests out. So
right.
It's definitely a good kind of layer to add when you're doing that.
I've always wanted to try that for pests, but I was no, it won't work, or maybe it's too messy, but now I have a bag of sand and I haven't used it yet. So
now you gotta try it.
I want to try it. It's on my things to try.
Yeah. And then limestone is also an addition. So coming from Florida, there's just limestone everywhere.
Yeah.
But you can actually add it to your pots at home. Mm-hmm. Usually it's calcitic or dolomitic limestone. I've only ever seen dolomite at work. I haven't seen the calcitic one. I don't think. But yeah, it's really useful. It basically just helps neutralize the pH depending on what's going on.
Yeah.
So it can be a good addition.
Yeah.
Especially for things like peat moss.
Right. If you need to bring it down a little bit, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And limestone, it's a mineral. So again, it helps with the calcium, the magnesium. It's really good for that.
All that good stuff.
And then we kind of talked about this when Adam was on, was LECA. He actually just put out I think it was an IGTV, and he talks about LECA and how to become a hydroponic connoisseur.
Ooh,
so
gotta go check it out.
Yeah, we'll try and link it. But it's an acronym, which when I learned it was an acronym, it was what? It's an acronym. I love acronyms. And it stands for lightweight expanded clay aggregate,
which is literally just that. It's literally expanded clay aggregate. So they take clay balls and they expand them under really, really, really high heat.
Yep.
And they puff up.
Yep. And they're the cute little balls.
Yep, cute little balls. Unless it's low quality LECA, then they're going to be a little oblong.
Yep. Yeah. And it just soaks water up. So really great for having things be super sterile.
Yep.
And in a sterile environment where maybe you're somebody who travels a lot, but you want to keep houseplants, you just put them in leca and water, and you don't have to worry about watering your plants.
Exactly.
And you can see the roots, which is really cool, depending on what you have it in.
There are a lot of really cool benefits to it, and there are also some unique challenges that you face if you use leca versus soil.
Yep.
So we won't get into actually transferring your plants over.
No.
Let you go check out Adam's video, and maybe we'll talk about it at a later date.
Yeah.
But just know that it's a really great medium to use. It helps with pests, and so there are a lot of different reasons that you might consider using that versus like different soil mixes.
For sure. And the way like a lot of people ask like, how do you fertilize? Do I just put my fish fertilizer in there? No, don't. That's nasty. Don't do that to yourself and to your plants. It's more so like a hydroponic fertilizer. So something that you actually, like a fertilizer made for hydroponics for water. They make those. So those are the ones you would use, or it's like a growth hormone, just for your roots.
Like liquid dirt, something like that, you know?
Yeah, don't use Newt. Fuck Newt.
Nah, we're past Newt.
We're past Newt. We're over them. Liquid dirt all the way. So yeah, so that's leca. And then we mentioned this the other week, so we won't get too into it, but worm castings.
Yeah, I know you tend to use that a lot. Yes. It makes a really great fertilizer for your plants.
It is.
So it's great to add it to your mixes so that you know that your plants are going to have the nutrients that they need. You can also make your own worm castings. You don't have to buy it at the store. So this kind of goes back into composting, but very renewable and something that you can make at home to keep your plants happy.
Yeah, definitely. Are you going to try worm castings?
I really want to, yeah.
It seems
like such a good idea. I really want to get into composting in general, so I'm hoping eventually, we can move that direction.
I tried that Thanksgiving last year, maybe like 2 weeks before Thanksgiving. I'm like, we're going to compost. We're starting composting. I bought a composter and everything, but I had it in my apartment.
Oh, no.
So it smelled, and then fruit flies started.
Oh, no.
And then we had an infestation of fruit flies in our house the same week that I was hosting Thanksgiving in my small apartment.
That's not what
you want. You would be eating turkey, and a little fruit fly would fly across your face. And it was the most embarrassing thing that I've ever, that is a true, train wreck Thanksgiving story.
We'll do an episode on it. We're going to have to talk about
I need to learn more. I need to learn more.
And so we also have charcoal, which actually kind of does the opposite of worm castings, helps keep everything really clean and clean impurities and things like that.
Yep.
So activated charcoal is super popular for terrariums because you're going to have a really moist environment and you're not going to change the soil very often.
Yep.
So the charcoal helps keep all of that healthy.
Yep. And it lasts forever. It takes a long time for charcoal to break down. So it purifies for a really long time. And if you need to increase your pH alkaline, then you can, or excuse me, is it
acidic?
Acidic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either one, really. It just increases your pH. We'll just go with that. Okay. I remember chemistry.
Two more, y'all. We're almost there.
Two more there.
So our last two are actually both to help with pests because pests happen, especially when you're trying to bring the outdoors in.
Yeah.
So the first one is mosquito bits.
Yes. Super
duper popular, and there's a reason for it. It works really well. Yep. This isn't an overnight solution. I've had some people kind of seem to think so. That's not exactly how it works. So definitely good to know this isn't going to get rid of them overnight.
Yeah.
But it is going to help reduce the population of fungus gnats over time.
Definitely. And it does work.
Yep.
But when I started using it last year, when I had a ton of fungus gnats, it took probably about 2 months for me literally just to not see anything anymore.
See? I mean, that's not bad, though.
No.
It's worth it if you're planning on having plants for the next few
It
years.
was a diabolical plan. I went after those dudes. I did not care. But you have to be so you can... When I first started it, I layered it on top of the plant, and then when you water it, it releases that chemical into the soil, and that's what kills the larva and the eggs. Because when the larva hatches, that's what's damaging your plant because they're eating the roots. So that's what I did, and then now I just mix it
In any soil mix.
In any soil. And if I see like an issue with one plant having like a ton of fungus gnats, then I'll do a top layer again and just be like really attack it with it.
Nice.
But it doesn't harm your plant.
No, not at all.
It's not harmful to your pets. It's not harmful to you. So if you accidentally ingest it or you have like a 2-year-old and they eat it off the top of your plant, like it's fine. Read the directions though. Read the warning labels. But yeah, mosquito bits is awesome. And they have like these little like disc things too. Yeah. And you like put it in water and let it soak and like kind of melt away. And that's really great too for helping. But that's not something you would really mix in with anything. But another really great product from them.
And then you can also mix in diatomaceous earth with your soil.
Yep.
Which we'll call DE because it's a lot easier to say. But it's like a really, really, really loose, fine powder.
Yep. Really similar to like all-purpose flour texture.
Exactly. Yep. So be really careful.
Yeah.
And it basically kills everything.
Yeah.
It kills anything it touches.
Yep.
But it does have to touch the actual
outside of the bug. Yep, exactly. Yeah, like it kind of like either dries them out or it's because it's phytoplankton, which is like broken down pieces of like skeleton pretty much, and it's like super jagged. So it like kind of gets stuck in between their joints and then they can't move anymore.
Yeah, I've always thought of it as like fiberglass for insects.
Yeah, totally. But we consume diatomaceous earth. We as humans eat DE literally all the time. It's in our food. It's covered in our food because our food comes from the ground.
Right.
And diatomaceous earth, it's just, again, it's marine phytoplankton from millions of years ago broken down. So it's in everything.
And we are buying food grade DE when we buy it in with our plants.
Yep. Buy the food grade, please. But I just started using it. I used like half of my bag, I want to say. It's messy.
It gets everywhere.
Oh, it gets everywhere. Just be prepared for that.
It comes with like a little duster.
Yeah. It
dust it everywhere.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, but it's awesome. And you can like sprinkle it again on top of your potting soil if you need to. And like your pot, go down into the soil as well. So really great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Definitely worth using.
Yeah.
And I think that's everything on our list. So hopefully you all learned quite a bit about different mediums that you can use for your soil so that next time you plant one of your babies, you can give it the optimum little home to live in.
Yeah. And like have fun with it. I feel like mixing different soil substrates is like, it's so much fun because you're like, oh, I want to add a little bit of this and a dash of that. And like, ooh, you're really going to benefit from having more perlite. So, and it depends on your plants too. If your philodendrons love more aerated soil, maybe your calathea don't need to be as aerated. So like,
totally.
Do a little bit more research on like what is epiphytic versus not epiphytic.
Yeah, and also your habits too. So do you water often? Because if you almost never water, you might want a soil that retains more moisture, you know?
Exactly.
Or if the plant is getting a lot of sun, you might want to make sure that it's retaining more moisture. So just like think about what you need, what your plant's going to need, and then make a conscious decision about what to throw in.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We really appreciate it. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at 2 Girls 1 Plant Podcast.
And then follow our personals. And then we're on YouTube and Facebook and like all things.
The whole nine.
A whole nine.
You know.
And yeah, thanks for getting dirty with us.
Yeah. We'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.